Let me just start with the definition of spiritual mentoring. Yeah. So I'll come back to unpack this later, but instead of using a term like mentoring or coaching or teaching, I'd rather use a definition because many people use the same words in a different way. So for me, and I'll unpack this later, spiritual mentoring is an intentional, relational process where each one person takes responsibility for guiding the spiritual growth of one or several others. That's my definition. I'm going to unpack this later. But let me quickly go on to say why this is a difficult time to talk about mentoring. The curse of superficiality. People want to produce many things as quickly as possible and as large a number as possible. And you'll find that mentoring, walking with people, always takes time, it's messy, and especially in a context like ours, it's always how many, by how fast can you do it. And so this curse of superficiality, one size fits all. So one program, we put everyone through that program, and then they come out the other side, the product that we want to control. That's again part of the business factory kind of approach that has helped us in many ways, but it also sometimes control how we view discipleship as well. Utilitarian, the focus is on what we can get someone to do rather than on the development of the individual. It's how can we get someone to fit into our ministry context or whatever. So there's a utilitarian goal rather than focusing on the welfare, the flourishing of the individual. Ironically, when the person flourishes, the ministry also is blessed, but often they are only seen through the eyes, especially in churches. They're seen through the eyes of how I mentor this person, how they can better support the ministry of my church, rather than seeing how they can be maybe useful for the kingdom, maybe in church, maybe in marketplace, whatever. So this utilitarian and fixation with speed, in 1 year, how many mentors do you produce? And always this focus on speed. And so these things are not, I guess, bad in of themselves, but it kind of also sabotages a healthy approach to mentoring. And really, but today you guys can ask any questions afterwards. So I'm just presenting some basic material and focusing on how we kick off the journey. Okay, why is a mentor important? I find that there are at least 4 reasons that a mentor can help a mentoree. One is we need to model for them what it actually looks like. Let's say a lawyer of 30, a lawyer of 50. They need to see someone down the line who is still following Christ in their profession and in church and hasn't sold out. They don't need another sermon. The 30-year-old lawyer can download many sermons, Tim Keller, whatever, online, but they need to have someone to model for them what it means to follow Christ further down the road. So I think that's what a personal relationship provides. I know you. Now, someone from far away, you only see their best self. You do not see the total self. But when you get to know someone relationally, you know their strengths, their weaknesses, and that makes you a more authentic model. So when I grow older, I want to be something like this. I mean, I can see something like this. It may not be exactly like you, but at least you show them, you model for them what it can be. And a good model can also be very inspiring. And I would say right now that what older people have is more lived experience. Younger people have much more learned expertise. I take it that young people now know more than me. I'll never catch up. They are so used to learning all the time. That is their world. So for me, even to learn a few things also, I hate it. So the young have a lot of learned expertise, which I respect highly. I'm learning from my young friends that I mentor all the time. But old folks have more lived experience. We have gone through more heartache. We have gone through bouncing back from failure. We have gone through many life experiences that you have gone through. And this can result in some wisdom that we can make available to our younger friends. So I would say the best mentoring is always mutual. I learn from my younger friends, but hopefully by my attempting to be faithful to God all the days of my life, I can also provide a model for them that it can be done. I've gone through pain, I almost gave up, but here I am still following God, still trying to serve God at this chapter of life. I think that's very powerful. So this is not some famous speaker from far away, they can see TED Talk or whatever, but they won't know them personally. But if they know a mentor personally, you have that power to be able to model for them. Number 2 is what I call life processing. In the sense that when you live through your Christian life out in the world, you encounter all sorts of situations which are not directly covered by the Bible. So, my boss shows favoritism to my partner. What to do, Or I want to resign from this job because it's really destroying my spirit and my emotional health. But to resign without what penalty I have to tell a white lie, can or not. So these are kind of questions, specific questions in the grey world. And where will they bring their questions to? They know all the right answers. You can pray, you should read the Bible, or that, but they need help to process specific issues they're grappling with. And again, I must tell you that you don't need to be the guy who knows all the answers, but you give them a safe space to process their questions. And talking about how many churches are losing young people, young people tell me, when I started working life, as a fresh work graduate, the church gave me very little help on how to live out my faith in the world. They tell me I must do Bible study, do quiet time, pray, share the gospel, which is all correct, of course. But I'm grappling with all sorts of ambiguities out in the workplace, which there's no direct guidance from the church. I don't know what to do. So sometimes they leave the church not because they've stopped believing in the faith, but they find that the kind of spiritual formation we do is not connected to what they're experiencing in the Monday to Friday world, where there are a lot of ambiguity, a lot of gray areas, which is not directly covered by Scripture. But I need a safe space to surface my questions, and then we can try to find an answer together. So no obligation that we know all the answers, but at least we give them a safe space to surface their questions, then we grapple to find the answer together. So number one, you model the faith. Number two, a safe space to process their life. Three is accountability. Half the time, people may kind of know what they should do, but they need some cheering to do it. So as a Christian in the industry, this is not cool. As a Christian, we can't do this, but I know it's tough. I'm here with you. Let me pray with you. Let me find support for you when you have to make tough situations. But you hold them accountable to live out their faith. The knowledge, they know. But you and I know. Knowing what to do and having the moral courage to do it is two separate things. Having a mentor who loves them. So it's loving accountability, not crack the whip. Loving accountability, we can help our young people stay the course. And they will be discouraged. We were discouraged at times when we tried to live our faith out in the world. And so a good mentor can provide accountability and encouragement. Sometimes it looks like when you make a choice for Christ, you lose. And someone who doesn't care about Christ seems to have gone ahead of you because they were willing to cheat or whatever. So you feel kind of stupid to follow Christ. They need someone to say, well, I've lived a bit longer. Often following Christ, you may appear to lose in the short run, but in the long run, God will never fail you. But we can say that because we have a longer runway to look back on. We have trusted God in ups and downs. At first, it seemed we make a stupid choice, but then through the passing of time, we see that God has actually vindicated. God will not owe us. But for a young person starting out, that's a very scary time. They have made very painful decisions for Christ. They seem to be losing. Then the one we can say, no, I know it's a hard time. We love you, but we're going to work on this together, and God will see you through. Hence the need for spiritual mentoring. Now let me go back to the definition itself. Spiritual mentoring. The key word here is intentional. That means we don't just, you just yam chow only say, no, we are actually meeting. There's a goal here. We are actually walking together to help, well, both of us, but of course one may be the older one, the younger, to fulfill their potential in Christ. That is a purpose. That's important. It's relational, and that's the key word. That means we actually form a relationship. So it's not teaching from afar. No, I'm a preacher, I'm a pulpit up there, I talk down. They don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what they're doing. I can be a good teacher, but that is what mentoring is not. You actually form a relationship with the people that you are walking with. They will get to know you, you get to know them, which is why mentoring sometimes is not popular, because it needs the mentor to be vulnerable to some degree. We have to give our real us, so our strengths and weakness. All this is covered to some degree in the micro teaching on mentoring, which you can have access to. It's a process, again, meaning that we are on a journey. It's not that I walk with them 12 times, once a month for 1 year, then they are complete. No, they are in a journey of growth, just as we are on a journey of growth. God was working in their life before they met you. God will still work in their life after they leave you. But for that part of their journey, you are allowed to be part of the process of their growth. So it's a high calling. So it's a process. There's no sense of when you're going to arrive. Now, when I first talked about mentoring many years ago, when I came to Singapore, the question people ask me, at the end of it, got certificate or not? I said, no, it's not about certificates. It's about working with people to help them grow. Now, we are looking for some end point. So 12 sessions means to pass liao, and then you get the certificate. No, it's about growing. It's a journey of growth. It's a process. Spiritual formation is a big word, and basically it just means growing in Christ-likeness in all its aspects. Catholics, Anglican, Protestant use the word in a different sense. I just have the most simplest definition. Spiritual formation essentially is just helping them to grow in Christ-likeness in all areas of life. Where one person, so the key of mentoring is the mentor. It's not a book, although a book is helpful. It's not even the program, it's the person. The person is the key factor in mentoring. And some other day, I would like ask all of you to share one mentor who impacted you and how that felt. So I'm sure all of us had mentors in our life. I'm who I am because somebody bothered to invest time in my life. So maybe at some other time, and this could actually be one group. I could ask each of you to think of one mentor that really impacted you and why. So you are the person. You are the person. And as Michael said, there's no one standard, one-size-fits-all mentor as well. We bring who we are into the process. We're not mass-producing mentors. Each of us are different. And that difference is celebrated. Everybody should be like Michael, or like Su In, or like Andrew. No, I mean, we are all who we are, we bring ourselves. And it also tells me that no single mentor will meet everybody's needs. So you are not like, so the person may indeed, through their life, have many mentors. Or even at that point they're walking with you, they may find time with somebody else as well. That's fine, because none of us have it all. So the person is a spiritual guide is a key word for me because, like I said, older people, and of course I refer to myself, tend to see mentors as knowledge experts that enter your life to teach you what to do. Younger people will see a mentor as a guide who walk alongside them to surface questions, to help them to understand and to learn on their, that means they grasp the principle on their own. After a helpful mentor asks the right questions or challenge some of their thinking. So listening and questioning is a key part of mentoring. How to listen to them as they process their stories, how to ask the right questions so they have to think through on themselves. And these things will be covered in the micro-learning as well. How to listen well, how to ask good questions, which I'm telling you now is very difficult. And Jayadi can scold me because often I talk too much and I try to tell him what to do. I confess, he's in one of my groups and I broke all this rule because, what do you mean by this? So I said, this is, I apologize. Because you know so much, you have been through life so much, and so I have to bite my tongue. I said, don't talk. Don't give them the answer. Ask them the questions that may guide them to the answer. I'm telling you now, this is going to be very tough. Because all of us have learned things the hard way. These are precious lessons we have learned. It would seem that we should be telling them the answer. And that's teaching, and teaching is a different discipline. We should be teaching in the pulpit, out in the industry. Teaching is a powerful medium of its own, and I'm a teacher too. But mentoring is slightly different. We are not teaching them. We are guiding them to come to their own conclusions. Of course, it's an art and not a science. There are times when we may have to tell them things. I'm not saying we don't do that at all, as long as we are careful that the main focus is to guide them to come to their own understanding, rather than telling them straight off. So that they can begin to think for themselves, which is what we want. One day we won't be there anymore. But if you, by asking questions, helping their thinking, they can now think on their own, then they can carry that with them. They will then grasp principles that they have learned for themselves, not just passively listen to somebody telling them. I'm telling you this, especially for us who are older, this is going to be a real challenge. We have learned many precious lessons through blood and tears. The temptation is, I know. And for me, I'm going to bite my tongue got a lot of scars. Bite my tongue, shut up and just ask questions. And challenge their thinking, ask questions. I think Jesus does that. He asks a lot of questions, you notice, in his teaching. And he also tells stories. Once in a while, you can share some anecdote from your life that may help them to jumpstart an understanding. But the main thing, I think, is to listen, to ask questions. And I think Jesus does this Socratic kind of teaching as well. He asks a lot of questions. Who do people say I am? Who do you think I am? He's always asking questions. And we will share in a later clip why questions are powerful, coming up later. One or several others. The old way of mentoring, like navigators, is one-to-one. One-to-one. And that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. Moses and Joshua, Paul and Timothy. But I've, in more recent times, done 1-to-2 or 1-to-3. Because not only is there, this person get a mentor, they get a mentoring community as well. This friend who is a peer may provide some degree of peer support. So it's not just I mentor one or I mentor two, but they also encourage each other and they teach me as well. So using 1 to 2, 1 to 3, but there is no legalistic understanding to this. 1 to 1 is very hot house development of one individual. 1 to 2, 1 to 3, you provide a mentoring community. What I find through this 30 years or so is the mentoring community sometimes take a life of its own. So even after I have left them, they are still kawan, they're still friends. Those 3, now they don't need me anymore. They will still meet on their own because that 1 year working together, they have formed their own relationship, nothing to do with me. So when that formal period is over and I've left them, I found that they can continue on as a mutual mentoring friendship group and takes a life off beyond me. So I tend to lean more towards 1 to 2, 1 to 3 now, rather than 1 to 1. Although I do 1 to 1 as well. So these are all not hard and fast rules. Depends on who God brings to you and the situation that you have. So that's one of several others. 3 things that we can do in mentoring. Number 1 is mentoring for maturity. It's more like discipleship. Mentoring for transitions is what we've done in the past, which is like a young adult. I think Michael and GCF is very strong on young adult mentoring in the sense that when they leave tertiary education to go to working life, is the most critical transition actually. If they do this transition well, the rest of their Christian life is very strong. If they do this poorly, it can cause a lot of damage we need to repair later on. So mentoring time of transition, but it could be like about to enter uni is a transition. About to enter marriage is a transition, or parenting, or retirement is a transition. So I find that the enemy is very active at transitions. You know, he came into Jesus' life and he was about to be baptized. Or, you know, he came to Jesus to tempt him in the Garden of Gethsemane. Every time there's a major transition, the enemy comes. So transitions, mentoring for transition is young adult or young graduate mentoring, and we will explore that as well. But one is called mentoring for vocation, and we thought instead of trying to cover everything, because these 2 other churches and para churches may be doing as well, since we are graduates Christian Fellowship, and what is the purpose of my life? So there are many good books out there. One which I wrote, a very simple one, ABC, if you want to pick up, there's a couple of books for sale. It's to help people come to terms that they do have a specific calling and some clues on how to discover that. A is ability, what is their primary strength. B is their burden, all the needs in the world, which burden weighs heaviest on them. For me, I'm burdened for teaching. For you, it could be startups or whatever. So there's no sacred secular divide, but which burden out in the world is the one that weighs heavily on you. And C is critical life incidents. As we go through our story, there are things that happen that kind of define who we are. A key point. So this could be a one book. There are many other books which I'll recommend later for you and your mentorees to walk together. We process one chapter. We come together to discern what does this speak to you. And so our goal is not just mentoring in general for maturity. I presume maybe transition to some degree. Mentoring is holistic. It doesn't. Oh, we're not talking about vocation, so I can't talk. No, I mean, because we will talk to them about life in general. So for transition, especially those starting their working life or the first 5 years of working life, got many questions. And finally, something more specific. What is your vocation? So vocation is not a job. For example, if my vocation is to teach the Word of God, whether GCF hire me, I pay myself, I'm retired, I'll still be teaching because that's who I am. Vocation is more linked with who you are than who's your employer. So we may take different paid positions throughout life or maybe retire, but I'm who I am lah. So vocation is more a statement of how God has hotwired me, who I am. Now the heart of today's one is the 4 phases of the mentoring journey. So let me say that there's such a thing as and with this I will finish. So really I want to hear feedback and questions. There is what I call informal and ad hoc mentoring. It means somebody knows you, he comes to you, now I've got a problem with this situation in school. Can you help me or not? Then you address that, then the mentoring exchange is over already. They came to you for specifics, ad hoc, informal mentoring. And this is powerful as well. This is not at all unimportant. It's a very learning place in life. People learn best when there's some burning issue they need. So, no, my company is going to sack me, what should I do? Can I have coffee with you? So maybe it's just 1 or 2 sessions, but it is very focused on the specific need that the mentor has. So that's called ad hoc or occasional mentoring, which is very powerful. And hearing all of you, I think our heart is open. If you ask me, I'm happy to yam chow with you, and then we talk through What is this issue that you're grappling with? So that is a very powerful way. But the things I'm going to share is more formal mentoring. So we're going to meet like once a month for 12 sessions or what. So it's more formal. Formal doesn't mean better than ad hoc. I'm just saying that there is a more specific goal where we go through a period of time. And that actually helps you to build a relationship because you meet them 12 times, 14 times, then they will know you better, you know them better. It will give other fruit than ad hoc mentoring. So, but it's not one is important or the other not important. That's not the way. Both are important. So in terms of 4 phases of a mentoring journey, there are 4 phases. Number 1 is to make the connection. Because mentoring is relational. You try to build a relational connection, like what Michael did today. Everybody share a bit about their background, or they share what school they came from, see what other connections. Oh, I know your father. No, that's a connection. I do. We actually shared a room before in Love Singapore. And then, some from NUS, or we know my mother is from Hong Kong. 你唔知道啊，我媽媽係香港嚟嘅，你知道啊？我同你講，唔知啊。Okay. So I connect to Cantonese, So we try to look for creative ways to connect lah. Or if we can't, then we can talk about our work. What are some joys and struggles? We can talk about, what is our main challenge at this chapter of life. So it's only beginning to connect lah. Of course, it's not that we share everything one shot, but you begin to build some kind of natural connection, so you feel connected in some way. Oh, you're from Penang? Why must Penang lang? So we will connect in some way, NUS or GCF or whatever. Yeah, I was from University of Singapore. My time got no NUS yet. So you know how old I am, kind of thing. So we try to find some kind of natural connection. The number 2 is what I want to focus on today, is deciding what this mentoring journey will look like. Negotiating, clarifying goals and expectations. Let me give a little theological thing. The difference between a contract and a covenant is an extra spare. A contract is also an agreement, but it's an agreement of some things you expect the other party to do and penalties if they don't do it. Like if you get someone to refurbish your house, must be done by August. If you don't do by August, there'll be penalties. So a contract is there, an agreement, and people agree to do certain things, but in some sense not because there's no, out in the world, no real trust. That's why you have to put in all these penalties. If you don't do this thing, you cannot this. But a covenant as defined by God is nobody forced me, I volunteer. God volunteers to bind himself to Israel. And he is the one who binds himself to do this. Not that Israel forced him to sign the document. He initiates the document. He initiates the interest because he loves. So in a way, covenant is a better understanding of this kind of agreement because both sides voluntarily bind themselves to each other to walk this journey. Because they have some spiritual goal in mind. 1 to 2, 1 to 3. That's the. But if you throw out the word covenant, people panic. It's like Old Testament covenant. So we didn't use the word covenant, but just giving you a little theological understanding of the heart of contract and covenant. Contract is what happens all the time. In a fallen world, you don't put penalty, people can get away with anything. Especially refurbishing your house. But covenant in the Old Testament and in the New, God binds himself. He wants to love you. So he commits himself to do it. And he does it voluntarily. And he looks for similar love response from his people. And so I would say that the agreement in this mentoring journey is more like covenant than like contract. So this one, maybe business training cannot say this, but Christian training, I can say this. It's at least to tell you the heart of it. I don't have to do this. I want to do this. I commit myself to you to walk with you 5 sessions to have it, because I care for you and I care for what we are doing. But that would be the heart of a mentoring agreement. So negotiating is actually mentor and mentoree negotiate and agree on the details of the mentoring relationship. Afterwards, I think we will show you a possible agreement to sign. It sounds very formal, but I think there is a place to actually be clear about what we are doing. So that's why I distinguish mentoring from fellowship. Fellowship is much more informal. Suka-suka we can meet, and then don't am I, and all that. But formal mentoring is more structured. And there's nothing wrong with that. You want to do an MBA, you pay tons of money, go through 12 sessions. So here we commit to meet X hours, how many times a month, we'll work through a book together, and there are various things which we will, afterwards you can show them. And so this is negotiating, And this is where we will then talk about as much as we can in terms of values that we expect that people will be honest and open their heart. I will be, as a mentor, and if you don't want to use the word mentor, friend is fine. Friend, I will open my heart. I will not judge you or not jump on you. I'm here to be your friend, to help you as much as I can. And maybe in return, you can also feel free to share with me. So we talk about the values of that. I don't want to make here because it will be a very long document. So that one can be learned from the mentoring way and all that. There are other ways, other platforms for training that we will introduce later. But at least we talk about this. That we are going to walk together. Basic commitment is that I will show up. Because the mentoring is not a book study. The mentoring is a connection between people. So no point, I can stay at home and read the book. Well, that's fine. Then maybe you're not ready for mentoring. It's okay. Because the mentoring is we are showing up. We actually show up and meet up. That's how friendship is built. We actually meet up face to face. Thank God it's post-COVID now. And we actually meet up. So you must meet up and do your homework before you come. That's a fundamental commitment. I mean, if you don't want, never mind. I mean, nobody's forcing you. Covenant, remember? You want. Because you see value in this relationship. We're going to meet up 2 hours once a month. We're going to talk about life. We're going to maybe talk about what you learned from the book, the assigned chapter. We pray for one another. You can surface whatever questions from where you're going through in the marketplace. I'll try my best to see how I can address those. So it's an agreement that we will meet up X hours, how many times a month, for how many sessions. This is critical. Sometimes the mentoring breaks down because people are not clear about this. So why is it only 3 sessions? I mean, did people agree ahead of time? Why? Say, oh, it's ad hoc. When each one wants to meet, fine, never mind. But you mentioned 3 times and the thing petered out. So was there an agreement? Maybe in the mentor's mind, they will only prepare for 3, but they don't communicate to you. I don't know. So here, removes as much of this ambiguity as possible. We're going to meet X times, how many hours, for what? That will be made clear in the negotiation and clarifying goals. And a simple agreement we'll show afterwards may help to illustrate this. And so therefore, if the person doesn't show up 2 or 3 times, I will actually ask, I mean, do you actually want this or not? If you don't want, it's fine. I've had this. We had a group meeting, then after X number of meetings, the person says, my law practice has changed, I've got no time for this anymore. So please let me know. No penalty or what, I mean, this is nobody's fault. And I bless you, but at least you know what we are veering away from lah. This is what it's supposed to have been lah. Then you don't do it, at least both sides will understand that things have happened. And things do happen, of course. Changing life circumstances, now a baby came, take care of aged parents, things they never computed when they first made the agreement could have come up. And we are not here to be legalistic. I mean, if they don't want, it's another thing. So I always tell people, this is what is expected. If you don't think this is what you need, it's okay. No one is forcing you to start this journey. But if you want, then these are the bare bones expectations. We even get them to sign. God is watching your signing. So that is making the connection. Then the third part is actually walking the journey. The 12 times or whatever it is, we walk with them. And then coming to closure. Coming to closure, again, this is easier done in formal mentoring because, okay, this is our last session. Maybe we'll have one more next week just to makan and celebrate. But okay, today is our last lesson. We will always be friends, but the formal program over already. So everybody know, we not that I suddenly don't like you and then don't want to talk to you anymore. So, but it's a good time to have a clear-cut ending where we can evaluate the program. What worked well, what didn't work well. The mentor talked too much and tried to push his view on me. Number 2, acknowledge the good things that happen, reflect back what we learned, and thank God, celebrate the journey. So 4 stages of a more formal mentoring is building the relationship, the part we're talking about today, negotiating the understanding of what this formal journey looks like. Number 3 is actually walking together, the 1 year, 2 years, whatever you agree upon, and then the formal closure of that relationship. You may embark on a new one if you want to, but the point is that at least for this exercise, that is the termination point. And if the relationship has been very good, there may even be feelings of sadness and grief, actually, because a deep relationship has been formed. And boleh cannot go anymore. Can, you're always my friend, but the formal part is over. So there's clarity of expectations on both sides. So this is the fourth. And should I talk about the agreement now? Do you have the agreement? So Michael has done a lot of hard work in getting this a simple agreement going as an example of what it could be. So I know it sounds a bit formal and business-like for a agreement, but if it's going to be a slightly more formal approach to mentoring, I think it's not terribly arduous, no? So you can just read through for yourself. It's because I don't know why, out in business, this kind of thing, no problem, and everybody will commit themselves to contract. But in church, oh no, we love each other by grace, whatever. But of course, you should show grace to each other. But this is just an attempt to nail down some very basic commitments, and if you give us feedback how to improve this, also, sure. But this is, I think, GCF's way of wanting to people take this seriously, and so a simple contract like this, which was sent to you by soft copy, and could be used to, as we launch the round of mentoring that's coming up. So that's all. I give time back to Michael and to hear from your feedback. Yeah.
Thanks. Maybe I'll just share a bit, then we will just do some interaction, right? So I think what we've been trying to do here in the past 1 year or so is actually to build an ecosystem first. An ecosystem of mentoring where we can actually find support for one another. So how do we support our mentor? This is at least what we have. Number one, we have the organization, both GCF and FES, where we are actually accountable to, right? And this is the structure that we can rely upon. Meaning that this program is not just anyhow plucked out of thin air and then just anyhow do, but we are actually responsible. So we have a proper structure to run the mentoring program, and we have the accountability, meaning that both mentor and mentee, we are accountable to one another, right? And then the mentors also need to be accountable, right, to the organization, and therefore you sign on the dotted line. It's just, I mean, of course, we won't, like be suing you or anything, but it's just a form of accountability to one another, showing our commitment to one another. And secondly, of course, we have Su Ian and Grace Works, who have actually been partnering with us, with GCF and FES. And in him, we find a trainer because he has been doing this for many years, and an advisor. Yeah, so we are not, when we are out there mentoring our fellow graduates or peer graduates or even younger graduates, we are not left alone or abandoned. We have a group of people who are walking alongside us. We have our fellow mentors and also advisor and trainer. So we will continue to run this on a regular basis. So since last year, we have the consultation as well as the micro teaching videos. And what we will launch when we start this mentoring, when we offer this mentoring to our younger graduates, right, we will have what we call a 360 feedback. So the mentee will be able to give anonymous feedback to us, to GCF, right, anonymously about their mentoring experience. And we will also run mentoring clinics. That means we will have like a 6-monthly clinic where mentors will come together and share our experiences, our ups and downs, and is there anything that we can do to improve? Yeah, whether my mentoring or the whole system, the mentoring system that we have, that we are running. Okay. So there will be additional, other than the mentoring consultation and the training, the micro teaching video, micro learning, we'll have the 360 feedback and the clinics. Again, this is not to scare the mentor, but it's really to support. You need to support the mentor, right? To make sure that our mentors are not left alone out there, that we are all together, right? And so, next, this is what we have so far. We have 12 short videos about spiritual mentoring. This is really an overview, big picture of what it means. to mentor somebody spiritually. I mean, you don't want to use the word mentor, spiritual companion or spiritual friendship. You can always access this online. This is free for all. We actually make this available for anyone who wants to learn about spiritual mentoring. Next, we will also have, okay, this is the mentoring agreement that Suin just shared with you. Okay, again, it's just a simple guide for negotiating, for contracting, the technical term. But basically, it's just to decide and agree on a set goals or value or expectation between the mentor and mentee, where and when to meet, how often, and how long. So our basic standard is 6 months. So 6 sessions, monthly meeting. But let's say the mentor and mentee felt that we might need a few more sessions. You can decide on your own. Like, we're going to need like 3 extra sessions, 5 extra sessions. It's okay.
I think this agreement also helps to make the point that the mentee actually wants it. You cannot have mentoring where the mentor forces the mentee. If they don't want, fine. Agreement means that they desire to be mentored. Because mentoring works, because the motivation is from the mentoree. They want to be growing, not that we force them to grow.
Yeah.
So agreement gives credence to both sides. The mentor is willing to work with you, but you also wanting to be mentored. Otherwise, it won't work. If you watch the micro-learning, which are all 10-minute clips, you will see that there are qualities of good mentors and qualities of good mentoree. So, are they viable or not? We have to check those. Are they teachable? Willing to,
yeah. Thanks. And, yeah, we have a new upcoming micro-learning series. So, if you scan the QR code, there's no video yet because we will launch it only next week. But because you are here, I want to tell you earlier that we are launching a new one. So stay tuned to this channel, right? We will be updating this very soon. So every 1 or 2 weeks, in the next couple of months, we will actually come up with the video. So Suin and I are working on it, right? This micro. So our focus this year is on the skills, the mentoring skills. So we talk about listening, we talk about asking questions, and whatever that was covered by Suin today about contracting, we will also include that about negotiating and contracting. And then also making a good closure, right? How to so-called terminate a formal mentoring relationship. And then there will be more, right? Next year we will launch even more of this mentoring skills, effective mentoring skills.